Para, Brazil, late 1977. On the river island of Colares, the power flickers and the streets go quiet. A woman steps into her doorway to feel the breeze, and a pencil-themed beam of light or energy crawls across her chest. She freaks out because it burns like a cigarette. The room tilts, her knees go soft, she's out like a light. At the clinic, a young doctor takes notes after a medical exam. A red burn, 2 tiny puncture-like marks, weakness, and dizziness. Over the past week, a slew of other patients came in with similar complaints. The villagers quickly give the lights a name, Chupa Chupa, or for us gringos, the Suckers. I'm John Genua, you're watching America's Strangest History. This isn't a campfire story. The mayor is literally asking for help. The Brazilian Air Force sends an intelligence team with cameras and instruments under the code name Operation Saucer. Brazilian Special Task Force teams stage night watches along the shore. They sketch angles, take statements, and photograph luminous objects over the water. Meanwhile, the clinic keeps filling up with people. The symptoms repeat, and the town ends up holding bonfire vigils. People go around banging pots and pans to scare the lights away. This happened. The mission exists on paper, the injuries exist in testimony, and the technology, well, it's beyond extraordinary. That's why this case continues to draw the public's attention. Tonight, we open up the mission pages, we map the nights, run through the best theories, and eliminate the impossible. This is Operation Saucer. Colares is a small island municipality in Pará, north of Belém. It's a river sea edge community with boats, stilt houses, and dark shorelines. By late 1977, reports from Colares and nearby river towns describe silent lights that descend to roof height and fire narrow beams of light at people. Got that? This wasn't rumor. The municipal authorities engaged the military and the Brazilian Air Force's 1st Regional Air Command to create a task force codenamed Operation Saucer. Inside those papers are dated hour-by-hour lines that show basic coordination with local authorities. One example, data 27 out of 77 shows 9:30 a.m., contact with the mayor. Here's the exact typed schedule line from the mission log. The same batch of pages shows field movements from town to town along the river, night watches, interviews, and photography of luminous objects over water and shoreline. Several logs between October 26 and the 27th of 1977 record minutes-level activity, like 15 minutes after midnight, locals report a light at low altitude. So we know the where, Colares and the river towns north of Belém. We know the players. In this case, we're dealing with Brazil's 1st Regional Air Command. It's a detachment working under Operation Saucer. Records illustrate coordination with the mayor, nightly observation posts, even early photo and witness statement collection. And you might be wondering how we got these records, right? How we're putting this out for everyone to see? Well, we didn't steal them. They're actually available to the public because the Brazilian government is pretty open about UFO disclosure. In fact, they keep a public archive, kind of like a UFO collection compiled from official Brazilian Air Force records. Around 743 cataloged events with reports, photos, drawings, audio, and video recordings. Operation Saucer is one part of that national archive. Reports show an island corridor where residents reported mysterious directed energy beam-like effects, and also an official Air Force mission that logged dates, hours, meetings, and night watches in black and white. Next, we'll examine who was on the ground, the medical records, and omissions in the official file. To be clear, this wasn't a rumor mill. It was a tasked intelligence operation inside the Brazilian Air Force. Here's who ran it, how they worked, and what the first few pages of the file actually say. Operational control sat with the 1st Regional Air Command in Belém. The paperwork you can open today carries the header and the codename Operation Saucer on the face of the mission reports. Field teams consisted of intelligence detachments, including night watch crews who interviewed witnesses, took measurements, made sketches, and photographed luminous objects over water and shoreline. The log shows hour-stamped duties like travel, meetings with authorities, and watch posts between October and December of 1977, along with follow-on sorties into 1978. By November 1st, 1977, Captain Uyrangê assumed operational lead. Contemporary reconstructions compiled from the released file place additional personnel joining that day, and even note the use of helicopters to test the validity of witness statements to determine if residents may have confused a helicopter with the mysterious floating lights. The record logs also show that 2 watch teams logged multiple observations from Colares during the first mission window. The Brazilian Air Force later summarized observations in a register sent up the chain of command. The documents, dated late October, early November of 1977, include entries like October 22, 1977, 8:15 p.m., a cluster of sightings from November 1st through November 8th, directly over Colares, with estimated altitudes from around a quarter mile to just under 4 miles, traveling at speeds ranging from sub to supersonic. Now, these are the kind of metrics typically analyzed by official teams taking measurements and recording, ultimately adding another layer of credibility to the reports. A second, shorter mission ran November 25th to December 5th of 1977. It was initially overseen with a CISA liaison. That's an Air Force Security Intelligence person. The stint concentrated inside Colares proper and logged dozens of additional observations. Again, Air Force paperwork noting direction, color, altitude, and maneuvers. Separate from the summary tables, the original mission sheets show entries like movement to Colares, arrival of mayor contact, then watch windows through the night. The cadence is straightforward: move, meet, watch, and document. The process repeats across multiple nights. Bottom line, First Command tasked intelligence crews, Captain Hollanda took point in the field, and the first mission window produced timed, measured entries down to meeting the mayor at 9:30 in the morning and logging night watches that produced the earliest Air Force observations over Colares. To understand these lights or energy beams that caused injury, we have to start with the only person who actually treated patients during the time, the director of the island clinic in 1977, Dr. Carvalho. Dr. Carvalho isn't made up, she's real. She's in the paperwork. Inside the Air Force mission file, her name, her age, role, even the name of the clinic appears big as Dallas. Translated to 24-year-old general practitioner at the Colares Health Unit. The page even lists her Belen address, her phone number. This tells us investigators spoke with her during the events and logged her as a primary contact. In later on-record interviews and TV features, Dr. Carvalho says she treated dozens of residents who arrived on foot or by small boats with this same exact pattern: a reddened, local burn, often paired with 2 tiny puncture-like marks, usually on the face, the neck, or the chest. Many reported dizziness, weakness, insomnia, low blood pressure, and kind of like an anemia-like fatigue that seemed to linger. She says at first she didn't believe the stories, but the repeatable lesions and the common symptoms quickly changed her mind. What does the official Air Force file actually tell us about the injuries? Well, the declassified mission records for Operation Saucer show night watch logs, interviews, site sketches, and photographs of the lights. They do not include a medical chain of custody, so no biopsies, no pathology slides, and no medical forms from the alleged patients. The omission is important. It explains why the mechanism behind the reported injuries remains incomplete in the documented evidence. Now, there were some brief military medical exams during the course of the official Air Force investigation. A separate summary, often quoted outside the main file, references entries dated October 26th to 27th of 1977, in which 2 aeronautic physicians examined 2 women soon after the incident and recorded many symptoms as stress response. That's a real counterpoint worth presenting. But until we can show a primary chain of custody copy of that medical report from the archive, we're going to flag this as reported content, but not necessarily lab proof. Where does this leave us? Well, we have the human evidence, burns with puncture-like marks documented by an island doctor. This remains the strongest on-scene thread. The documentary evidence, like logs, interviews, and photos, proves that the Air Force went, watched, and documented, but it doesn't demonstrate what delivered or caused these lesions. Let's open up the file, stick to what's on the pages, not the rumors. I'll show you the structure of the mission reports, the night watch diaries, the photo plates, and the Air Force's observation register that list dates, altitudes, speeds, colors, and directions of the unidentified objects they tracked. The backbone is the mission report, Operation Saucer under the First Command. Each packet starts with a header, then rolls into the dated entries. Date, time, place, activity, what the team did. Below the agenda, you'll see a reoccurring watch cadence: night watch at the shoreline point, interview with named residents, and photography if a light appears. Times are often to the minute. Locations are precise to the neighborhood and even the river bend. When the team photographed the lights, the images are mounted as photo plates. These are long exposure frames of luminous objects over water or the horizon, often annotated with compass arrows or watch post codes. Beyond the diaries and the plates, the Air Force compiled a UFO observation register. It's a summary table. Columns typically include date, time, place, altitude, speed, color, direction, observers. You get the picture here. Other rows attribute higher altitudes. 500 to 6,000 meters is most common. Colors like yellow, red, or bluish white, and directions like east to west or northeast to southwest. The speed, altitude, and direction were being estimated and logged by an official team, night after night. Two limits are obvious on paper. First, the photo plates are low information, lights against black, not a clear and distinct image of a craft with parts. Second, while the register lists altitudes and speeds, the reports don't include the calculation method, no triangulation worksheet or instrument readouts in the public scans. So we can only treat those numbers as field estimates, not actual lab measurements. Still, taken together, the diary cadence, the photo plates, and the observation register, the papers prove presence and procedure. The Air Force went, watched, measured, and documented. That elevates this case from folklore to a documented operation, even if the images are open to interpretation. One more page you'll want to freeze frame, the contact sheet listing Dr. Carvalho by name with her Colares health unit. It's the bridge between the military diary and the clinic accounts you just heard. It's proof the teams tied observation nights to the medical follow-ups. So, here's our paper truth so far. Headers, diaries, plates, and a national register, all pointing to sustained operations in Colares and neighboring shores. Next, we'll reconstruct one night from the diary timestamps, the local geography, and the clinic clocks so you can see how a light in the sky leads a person to a clinic complaining of burns and lesions. To see how a light in the sky turns into a patient in a chair, let's walk through one night exactly the way the paper and the local geography allow us to reconstruct it. We're on Colares, a river sea island north of Belém in Pará. The Air Force diary, the mission record for Operation Saucer, shows a watch detail. They meet local officials by day, then rotate night watches along the shoreline after dark. Dusk, 6:30 p.m. Teams check the riverbank posts. The diary uses terse lines like watch, interview, and photography, all timestamped, 7:05 p.m. to 7:10 p.m. The observation register logs two yellow-white bodies crossing Colares at 4,000 to 6,000 meters, one making a tight 360-degree curve at altitude before resuming course. Color marked pale yellow, direction north to south and northwest to southeast on adjacent lines. These are Air Force entries summarized after the watch. 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. The watch team moves between the ferry point at Peñalonga and the crossing between Vezia and Colares and roofline vantage points near the parish chapel. Multiple interviews record dogs barking before the mysterious light approaches and objects coming in from the sea towards town. Now, one witness, a local parish priest, reported a strongly luminous object moving from the sea to the land on a north-south heading in the early morning hours. After midnight, the diary captures isolated photographs and notes when a light holds long enough for an exposure. Plates show luminous trails over water with compass arrows and post codes. At roughly the same overnight window, villagers describe thin pencil beams of light or energy at close range. By morning, 2 patients reach the clinic by boat. They're tired and weak, with localized reddening and 2 puncture-like marks. The exact same pattern the clinic director, Dr. Carvalho, says she saw dozens of times during the period. That's a single night at this location, exactly as the papers and the geography allow. Diary lines with times, register rows with altitude, speed, color, direction, witness sheets noting sea to land movement, photo plates and lights, and by dawn, patients with repeatable lesions at the island clinic. 2 caveats keep us honest here. First, the photo plates are relatively low information. We see lights, but not hardware. Second, the register's numbers are field estimates. The public scans don't include triangulation worksheets or instrument readouts, but the timeline and the clinic pattern that follows it stands up to scrutiny. We'll pressure test the 3 most popular explanations. If they survive, we'll keep them. If they don't hold up, we'll label them partial and move on. Mass hysteria. Technically, collective psychogenic illness. It spikes in closed groups, like a classroom or a factory shift, where suggestion spreads fast. Colares wasn't a closed room. It was multiple river towns experiencing these phenomena over weeks, with night watch diaries and a UFO observation register logging dates, times, directions, and field altitudes with speeds. Psychogenic overlay can explain fear, insomnia, even faintness. It doesn't explain a repeatable lesion pattern, localized red burns, plus 1 or 2 puncture-like marks on the face, neck, and chest, all repeatedly treated by an island physician to boot. Verdict? Possible overlay? Doesn't seem to fit. Maybe it was modern technology that people just thought was alien or unexplained, like flares, lasers, or covert military exercises. Well, the mission papers from Operation Saucer under the First Command show observers, not drill instructors. There's also the part about meeting the mayor at 9:30 in the morning, night watch rotation schedules, obtaining official photo plates, and the compilation of an observation register. Also, flare burns don't match close-range, puncture-like lesions reported in the clinic interviews. The release dossier doesn't include local exercise logs that would place flare or laser ops over Colares on the relevant nights. Now, could classified ops exist outside of the file? Sure. But on paper, even a flare won't explain away the close exposure injuries. Verdict? Partial at most. Plasma or ball lightning. Interesting because it's a real luminous phenomenon, but it's usually short-lived, it's weather-tied, and most importantly, unpredictable. The Colares narratives describe revisiting lights, hovering low and narrow, pencil beams of energy or light at close range across many nights. That behavior and duration mismatch makes this a better fit for some of the photo plate images, but fails to account for the clinic cases. Verdict? Partial for the far light imagery, weak with respect to the explanation for injuries. So where does that leave us? Psychogenic overlay may amplify fear. Unacknowledged ops could explain away some far light images, but the file shows observers and the injuries don't match flares. Plasma might explain away a few of the photos, but it's not going to explain the repeatable lesions. None of these explanations clears the board. After we weed out all the fluff, here's what's left. If you remember nothing else, remember these 3 points. 1. The mission was real and logged. The mission records for Operation Saucer sits under Brazil's 1st Regional Air Command with headers, dates, meeting lines, night watch diaries, photo plates, and a compiled observation register. That elevates this from folklore to a documented Air Force operation. 2. A repeatable injury pattern was reported during the period in question. The island physician, Dr. Carvalho, describes localized reddened burns paired with 1 or 2 puncture-like marks, plus weakness and low blood pressure. Patients arriving by boat and by foot, all in the same window. 3. The mechanism is missing from the paper trail. In the released file, there's no biopsy, chain of custody, no instrument readouts that say what delivered the lesions. The void of information is exactly where this mystery lives. So, what exactly lives in this gap? 4 theories. Directed energy or directed biological effect of unknown origin. This fits the thin pencil beam heat localized lesions and repeat visits. It fails on the hardware. There's no platform recovered, no spectra logged. If true, you'd expect spectral signatures on surface microchanges on materials stuck by the beams of energy, evidence that's not publicly available right now. Environmental and psychosocial. This explains fear waves and some dermatologic reactions like heat, irritants, phototoxicity, and stress responses. The theory struggles with the puncture-like pattern in the beam at close range narratives without the measured exposures. Unacknowledged exercises like flares, lasers, and air operations. Now, this theory attempts to explain some of the lights and the images, but to be clear, there's no proof of this. The dossier doesn't say anything about drills going on or anything of that sort. There are no drill logs for the nights, and flare burns don't match the puncture-like clinic notes. How about a natural luminous plasma or ball lightning? Now, this works for some photoplates, like lights against black sky, but fails to explain other aspects during the long duration of the lights. The intelligent behavior and the maneuvering, and again, the narrow beam of energy accounts. None of these theories passes muster. You don't have to take my word for this. Brazil put out a huge chunk of this story on the record, and you can pull the same pages I just showed. The files live at the National Archives in Brazil, inside a public UFO collection compiled from the Brazilian Air Force. Look for the mission records for Operation Saucer. So, after all this, where does that leave us? I see 2 possible explanations. Option 1, unknown directed energy effect. Something produced thin targeted heat and localized lesions revisiting multiple towns over weeks. We don't have the hardware or the technology on hand to examine, but the pattern and the paper trail survive. Option 2, lights plus fear plus misread injuries. Now, real luminous phenomena amplified by anxiety and rumor, while mundane still causes stress responses, irritants, mistaken exposures. It can be viewed as attacks in the moment. It explains part of the night, though it struggles with the repeatable lesion pattern that the patients were complaining of. Either way, 3 things won't budge. An official mission, a clinic cluster, and a missing mechanism. You decide for yourself. Maybe you have another theory that you want to share? Please comment below with your thoughts. If you lived in Corrales in 1977 to 1978, if you have original newspaper clippings, mission pages that we didn't show, unit flight logs, or medical notes that can be authenticated, please email us. Till next time, I'm John Genua, and this is America's Strangest History.